Let's get chilly. And here we go. Welcome back to Let's Chill, the official, unofficial Minnesota Wind Chill, Minnesota Strike podcast. I'm Jeff.
I'm Jay.
And I'm Kane.
And we're covering a lot tonight. And in such a short amount of time, we're going to get right into it. Jay, why don't you recap what happened this last weekend?
Yes, this last weekend, unfortunately, there was no strike game, so it was just the Minnesota Wind Chill playing. Fortunately, it was a much different look than their previous game against the Chicago Union. The Minnesota Wind Chill came out to a relatively quiet Pittsburgh Thunderbirds team, and they put up 31 points to Pittsburgh 14, which I was talking about this a little bit off pod. 31 points in 48 minutes is ludicrous. Like that is a ridiculous number. The fact that that can happen is just like that's absurd. Yeah. Combined, there were 45 points in 48 minutes. That's just about a score a minute.
Yeah.
So an amazing game. Minnesota bounced back hard. They increased their basically everything percentage, completion percentage, huck completion percentage, hold percentage, O-line conversion, everything. I think the only thing they actually didn't improve on was their red zone conversion percentage. I mean, it was roughly the
like
same.
we said last week, we know that was hard to do because that's the one thing they've been consistent on. So that makes sense.
Yeah. So Minnesota, tons of players showing up with massive performances. Some notable names, including, Tristan Vandy Mortel throwing 5 assists, Max Hanscom scoring 4 goals, and Pollard getting 3 blocks. So a pretty big game all around for a lot of players.
Yeah, and a quick shout out to Jay for calling out Max Hanscom beforehand. We were talking on in our group text, like we know we acknowledge and admit that half of kind of like the players to watch is somewhat guessing. Half of it is truly, seeing that talent, seeing some trends. And Jay was spot on with that call. So way to go. That was awesome.
Yeah. But because it was such a dominant win, there's really not too much to say about the game other than Minnesota played about as well as you can expect from a team playing against that in that sort of situation.
That was a nice way to bounce back after that loss to Chicago at home. Um, it was a good game. It was very fun to watch. Okay, well, we're gonna get into some previews here. Like I said, we have a lot to really we want to preview the podcast, and we do have mailbag tonight. So let's get into the strike game. I think we're gonna sit on the strike game. We'll end with the wind chill game. Kane, why don't you kick us off with your strike preview?
All right. So the strike this weekend. Oh my gosh, what's really funny? I was looking at it. It is Philadelphia. Okay.
Yep.
And they're home. They're home for Philadelphia.
They're home the last 2 games.
Yes. We'll get to the night that I'm actually really excited. I really like Nashville. We'll get to that game later. Anyway, so they're home hosting Philadelphia Surge. 5 o'clock, TCO Stadium. You guys better be there. We will be there. I don't think this is necessarily a must win for the strike, but
I do.
I don't want. Yeah, okay, we'll put that on them. This is a must win. I gotta relook at the standings and everything. I know it's always complicated. I remember the one year there was like some controversy with like what team actually made it to the championship weekend. So we're not there yet. I get that, but I do think that the strike need to finish off with a couple wins here at the end of their season. Yeah, there's no good way to like casually segue into players of the game. I kind of want to.
I'll quickly say the Surge are 2-1, and they have a doubleheader. The Strike are the first game of their doubleheader weekend. So that's something to watch. Unfortunately, it's the first game. They won't be as tired, but they might be, still reserving players. It's still a doubleheader weekend, so it's not like they'll be full strength necessarily. So something to watch. Some context as you preview.
Okay, yeah, that's actually good to know. I didn't even know that. Look at me. Okay, well, we're gonna go straight into players to watch. for this upcoming game here, especially being that it's a home game. Hopefully, we get a little bit more action in front of the crowd. I'm going to start us off with Steph Rupp. Steph Rupp. Um, she's been on the team for a few years here. Uh, Consistently being a playmaker, high energy on the field. We talked last week about how the Strike played both games, all 4 quarters, really, really hard.
Mhm.
And I think she's a really good uh, exemplification of what that looks like. I think she helps kind of inspire the rest of the line that she's on when she is there. She has a really positive impact on the team. She sort of feels like I don't know what I don't know the analogy. I don't know enough sports analogies. High energy playmaker.
Mhm.
Specifically when there's a turn, I think she's really really quick on hopping back onto defense. And then switching the transition between defense and offense. Uh, Last weekend there were a lot of turnovers between the two games. Windy, really windy conditions. Uh, Really good defense from Philadelphia. We talked about their zone forcing a lot of passing between the strike. This caused a lot of turnovers. Just more passes means more turnovers. And Rupp is always one of those players who, when the disc is turned over, whether she's on offense, she's really quick to find that defense to set up on defense, or if they're on defense, she's looking for that open zone. She's looking for, okay, do I need to pick up the disc here? Do I need to dish it out? Or am I clearing and then finding the open space downfield? Um, yeah, I kind of just like rambled there a little bit, so I'll let you guys take over a little bit here.
I like Rupp. I mean, she's veteran presence. She is primarily a D line handler, I believe. I mean, yeah, she's a handler. Um, and I remember in the first game, the first home game, and it was their first game of the season. We had kind of pointed her out as a player who had maybe looked like she was struggling, which is not typical of Rupp. I mean, I think she's a stabilizing force on the defense. She's stable. Kane, like you said, she brings a good energy. She's kind of a player that people will turn to and look to. And the first game, it wasn't her game, right? And we can admit that. It wasn't like she had a horrible game, but I think this will be her opportunity to bounce back, to be that stabilizing presence on the defense again. Um, I don't know too much about Surge, I'll be honest. I don't know kind of what offense they run, but I think she will be key on those transitions. Again, Kane, like you said, you nailed it there. Like once the defense can get the disc, yeah, look to Rupp to start that offense, the defensive turned offense, starting that movement back downfield to the end zone.
So, not that I do know more about the Surge than you, but they did in fact post like a halfway through the season post today, um, and talking about players who are leading their stats. And I think that an interesting thing is that some of their players, specifically all Danielle Walsh, has 8 hockey assists, so she's leading the team for the Surge in hockey assists. Um, and I think that that will be, something that Rupp is going to be like looking for, because I think Rupp will be looking for these key matchups, who is leading the team in assists, who that she can shut down, and especially in that hockey assist sort of role, that second handler out from the goal sort of role is a really big role to play, a really big facilitator, because often you're not looking to score the pass that actually scores, you're looking to score 2 passes back. So I think if Rupp is able to keep that field vision, know, okay, Walsh has the disc, she'll be looking to get it to someone who can punch it in. I don't need to worry about, stopping the long throw. I need to worry about stopping that, um, accessory throw, that
Yeah.
setup throw.
I like that phrase, accessory throw. That was nice. Looks like Danielle Walsh is number 20. So I'm very curious. I'm gonna watch for that matchup. Let's just see who Rupp is matched up against. If she's
Mhm.
up against 20 most of the game, that'll be a fun kind of matchup that we can see.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I didn't mention specifically about Rupp, she is a really, really good mark on the
Mhm.
defense. Um, so I think that that's a really commanding like role to take on the defense. You really get to kind of dictate where the disc is being forced and all that sort of stuff. So I think that yeah, look for her to be kind of taking over on the D line there. All
Yeah.
right. On the other side of the disc, my second player to watch, someone we have not given laurels to that we need to put some respect on this podcast. Erica Bacon.
Yeah.
She's a nationals and a world's champion. Uh, Bacon, if you're listening, love to get you on the pod.
Would
Um,
love to get you on the pod.
last year I actually didn't learn this until this morning. I didn't even like realize she led the league, or not led the league. She was third in the league in assists last year. Um,
Wow.
yeah, right. Um, and so I think talking about like the last couple weeks here, I think one thing I've been harping on is the offense, is establishing a consistency in the cutter or in the handler space. And if you want to talk about consistency in the handler space, you got to bring up Erica Bacon. Um, Last week when, or not last week, but the week before against the Surge, or against the
Red.
Indianapolis Red. Sorry. Um, when they were putting that zone on, I noticed that like basically every time the zone was able to be broken, I'm not going to say every single time, obviously, but a lot of the time she was able to find the cutter coming in on the under to break the zone, or she was able to make that extra strike cut to
Mhm.
get past that extra, to get past the cup, to kind of break it and force the gun into fire. Um, so I think she's definitely someone to keep an eye on the offensive side of the this game here. I don't know. Do we have like the actual roster like released for the coming weekend?
No, not
I should
yet.
have checked that before I like logged into
Yeah.
me. Could
That's,
you
I mean,
imagine
that's
they
the tough
posted
part
it like
about,
this
I
afternoon?
know, right?
Like
No, the
neither of them
strike
were
don't
rested.
post until later. I mean, the wind chill will posted tonight, but the strike haven't yet.
Okay. Well, I'm assuming she's going to be there. It's a home game again. She's been on the team for a few years now. She's been very consistently anchoring that O line. So looking to her to kind of take charge and put a few things downfield, especially if we have the cutters down. We talked about how they're able to hit their continuations downfield. So it's like as long as she can continue to hit that open space, then we're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I mean, okay.
listening to the strike broadcasts, I don't live near the cities, so I listen to a lot of their home games and watch a lot of their home games on YouTube. The number of times I have heard Kelsey Percy say Erica,
Yeah.
Erica Bacon to Michaela Daly is absurd. The number of passes that Bacon passes up to Daly or he receives from Daly, um, and just like those two, I mean, I know we're specifically calling out Bacon now, but just those two in general, really keeping that O line centered. Uh, so yeah, Bacon has always been a good handler on the offense of the strike for a while now. So yeah, the fact that we're just now calling her out, like, hey, if we want this O line to be successful, Bacon needs to be the one facilitating it. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I'd pretty much just copy paste what I said about Rupp. She's stable. She's a very like experienced veteran presence on the offense. I had been calling out Julia Hill as the leader on the offense that the team needs. Evidently, she has not filled that role as I described it, but Bacon has. And I think, yeah, she'll be key in these last two games, especially this game against the Surge.
All right. Anything else about players to watch?
I don't think so.
Okay. I have no smooth transition into keys to the game. We should get some graphic or something.
Ah,
Yeah, there you go. All right. My first key to the game is something so I rewatched the game against the Red this morning. Um, there were more drop discs in open space than I would have liked to see. I'm still trying to figure out how the best way to phrase this key to the game. I think the cutters and the handlers need to find a better rhythm to be able to get the disc to the open space at the same time that the cutter gets there. What I have written down here specifically is cutters need to hit the open space before the defender, and handlers need to match their rhythm. It felt a lot of times like the handlers were one step ahead of the cutter. They saw
mm,
that the cutter had the defense broken. They had the one extra step on them. They had the open space, and it felt like the handler, instead of taking the one extra throw to break the mark, which they necessarily don't need to do. Obviously, don't. The mark is already broken per se, right? They have the open throw, and
mhm.
I feel like they take that open throw rather than maybe hold on to that extra half a second. That's very specific. It comes down to very situational stuff. But then on the other side of it, it feels like the cutters were also mistiming a lot of their cuts to when the swing pass was coming around to break the zone. They weren't following they were still, kind of jogging off to reset the stack rather than immediately getting into that next cut, resetting rather than fully resetting the stack. If
Mhm.
the swing pass is already getting off, don't go back to where you were set up before.
I was gonna say, do you think the cutters should be setting that rhythm, or do you think the handlers should be? I mean, I have my answer, but what is kind of your answer for the strike this weekend?
I'm saying the handlers are setting the rhythm, and I'm saying the cutters need to match that rhythm. Is what
So
and so
so
in my
the
head, the
the
handlers are doing the right thing. Yes, the handlers need
okay,
to set the rhythm
I misinterpreted. I
as
thought
they
you were
are.
saying the cutters should be setting the rhythm.
Okay, no, I get okay. Good that you clarified that so that I don't get misinterpreted. Yeah, the cutters need to be matching the rhythm of the handlers a little bit better. I
Because I
definitely,
was,
yeah,
yeah,
I
I was
definitely
gonna
talked
say,
about like the specific from the handler perspective.
yeah,
I guess I'm like trying to like defend them. I don't know.
yeah, no, you're good. I was gonna disagree with you, but in fact, I do agree with you. Yeah, the handlers set the rhythm, and cutters should be, yeah, taking their lead.
Yeah, I think a good way to summarize it or to throw an analogy at it, the key to the game would be to, play in symphony. You know,
Ooh,
like the handlers are the conductors of this orchestra. They they
yeah.
they get this going. Um, if the cutters are not watching the handlers' motions, the handlers what the handlers can see, because a lot of times, I was watching that indie game. A lot of times, what happened was the handler couldn't see the cut coming in because their mark was blocking their line of sight. So
Hmm.
the cutters need to be cutting in a way where the handler can see as well. They need to be, following the handler's set because a lot of times, the handler can't move. They're the one who
Yep.
is the more limited. You need to play around them, not the other way around. So I totally agree with Kane. A lot of times the cutters were making cuts that just looked good, but they didn't look good to the handler because the handler literally could not see it.
Yeah, and a lot of times, like I said, I was a little bit there when cutters are cutting to the open space. They're cutting to the open space now, and very quickly in Ultimate, that open space becomes useless. Even though it's still open, no longer are you able to get the disc there.
Hmm.
Um, so you need to be able to transition that very quickly as a cutter to match the handler movement if the handlers are moving quickly as well. My second key to the game here to kind of slide into it. Um, the the defense specifically, but the team in general needs to establish more dominance in the deep space. A trend I noticed was a lot of broken defense and a lot of deep hucks getting off from the indie red, able to just put it downfield. And at that point, it's kind of off to the races. If you're not able to quite catch up to the offense, then it's just one kind of cheeky throw is all it takes. And so if you are giving that one deep, if you're giving that while you're waiting for the under, then they're going to take that all day long. So I think that the strike really do need to establish more dominance in the deep space on defense, but on offense as well. It'd be nice to see them take a few more shots deep as well, which they don't
Yeah.
do a whole lot
I
of.
was, I was gonna say they are not a deep looking team on offense. And on defense, they have the keys to do that. I mean, they have Ellie. We talk about Ellie a lot. Jane Cook has had a pretty quiet season, I think, overall, just relatively speaking, compared to last few seasons. I mean, yeah, I mean, I know it didn't work. We played Ultimate tonight. We played Pickup tonight. It doesn't work for me. I'm not a good like I'm not fast, but I know I'll give the under all day long, and I'm gonna sit on that deep throw a little bit more. And so whenever, yeah, like I think the strike kind of they have to give that under, especially if they have that speed, or if they don't have that speed, I should say. Like be more strategic on defense, set up in a way that's gonna be competitive. And you'll take those 50-50s, and they're not always gonna go your way. They're called 50-50s for a reason, but like, yeah, make them 50-50s, not 75-25s, if you will.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Any last thoughts on the strike game? All right. The wind chill game. That's kind of the marquee matchup this weekend. I mean, I don't want to overshadow the strike, but the wind chill are hosting the Atlanta Hustle in a first ever matchup on Friday night at TCO Stadium. And the wind chill, you guys see this pattern now that they're doing at least one game a year at TCO. It's these big games, these really fun marquee matchups. And the Hustle, it's a fun team. They're 6-0 on the season. It's Justin Burnett's old team. And it's gonna be a really fun game. I have players to watch, and my first player to watch is Justin Burnett, who I just said this is his former team. I'm just checking the roster now, and this is why we're trying to do this on Tuesdays now because that's when the official roster comes out. Justin Burnett is now out for the game. It said he was active, his status was active, and he's out. I was DMing Justin Burnett earlier today on Instagram, and he didn't say anything. He did not mention it. I was getting his thoughts to the game, and he had no mention of it. So I don't know if it was a last minute injury, a scratch, something. Um, so maybe my generic, I'm going to replace Justin Burnett because this was I was going to tie it into my generic player of the game or player to watch is the defense. Justin Burnett was going to be a big key on that defense. Maybe we could say James Pollard. If you want to throw a name on there, but
Max Hanscom.
Max
Minnesota's
Hanscom
team.
again,
The one thing Minnesota has been good at.
Dylan DeClerc. I
There
don't
you
know.
go. Yeah.
I mean, the long and short of it is the Hustle's offense is very, very, very good. Um, I think the UFA today just posted something that like they're first in Huck completions, maybe even Huck like total Huck attempts, like successful attempts. They're first in three significant offensive categories, and so the defense is going to have to be locked down from opening pull. I just want to share really quick some quotes that Justin Burnett had shared with me today when we were DMing. Um, I'll pretty much just read them like verbatim. So I asked, first of all, how he was feeling about facing the Hustle, his former team. And he said, I'm excited. It's going to be really fun to make big plays versus some of my boys. And then I asked, how would he describe the Hustle's style of play, specifically the offense? Like, the offense is so good. How would he describe the Hustle's offense? And he said, confident. They play with confidence every point in themselves, in the system, and in each other. They're going to go for big plays, and they have the ability to complete them, but they don't have to rely on them at all. It's going to be a fun challenge to play such a well-rounded team on offense. And then two more questions I asked Justin. Any tips or advice that he's giving to the wind chill ahead of Friday? He said he's going to keep him kind of quiet, at least publicly. He's not sharing what he's sharing. But one thing that he is going to share is that he wants the team to really bring the intensity and the energy, especially on defense. So just exactly what I was saying. He wants them to play confident and hype, use the crowd to their advantage, and make big plays. Finally, his four players or his few players that he wants to for us to kind of keep an eye out on is Brett Holzmeyer, Austin Taylor, and Adam. Gosh, I don't have his last name handy. But he said everyone's going to be focusing on them, so he wants to highlight Lucas McClamrock is the truth. Be ready for him to make a play. So just a few names that Justin shouts out. Um, so that's my first kind of player to watch. That's the long and short of it.
I mean, yeah, I've been saying that offense is like the thing this
Mhm.
season. So it's proven so in Atlanta and in Oakland, and defense stops offense. So let's see how this plays out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Minnesota right now is running the second most efficient defense in the league. Um, to be fair, the team that has the most efficient defense in the league has only played one game. Um, but we're not going to talk about that because um,
Yeah.
yeah, but
So
Minnesota has the second most efficient defense in the league, second highest break percentage. So if there's a team that can dismantle this Atlanta hustle, which is first or second in basically every single offensive category, it's
Mhm.
it's going to be Minnesota
It will be, and
or Chicago.
yeah, they have to do it strong, like right away, real strong. My second player to watch is going to be a boring pick. It's going to be obvious. I mean, Justin Burnett was a boring and obvious pick as well, but I'm going to say Will Brandt, and this will go into one of my keys to the game here shortly. But Will Brandt, it's not like Jay's Max Hanscom pick where it's like, oh, who is this guy? But he's definitely going to be key to the game. I mean, he is QB1 now. In TCO Stadium in the last 2 years, Will Brandt has a total of 5 assists, 68 completions. He just needs one more completion to have nice. And he has one goal. In championship weekend last year, so in two big games against the best teams in the league, he had a total of 2 assists, 2 goals, 1 block, and 64 completions, a total of 522 yards. 522 throwing yards, I should say. That's all to say, big games don't scare Will Brandt. He is the definition of calm, cool, collected. He doesn't care if he's playing the Detroit Mechanics, New York Empire, the Atlanta Hustle. If he's at TCO, if he's in Salt Lake, he's going to have a good game. Um, and so I think he's going to be absolutely key to the team's offense, to getting that rhythm going early and getting points on the board.
I would 100% agree. I think I don't know how many completions or throwaways Will Brandt has this year, but I think Will Brandt has been a very large reason why Minnesota's red zone conversion percentage is so high. And he has been successful in the red zone and also in getting out of sideline traps. And I think that we can expect some of those from Atlanta as well. So Will Brandt is good in situations where Minnesota needs him to be good, and it doesn't matter yet, like Jeff said, it doesn't matter what team he's playing. He's not afraid to put up a high release backhand or a hammer or a scuba or an anything. If he thinks it's the best throw, he's taking the throw.
So my first key to the game is, well, okay, I was gonna take that easy transition, but I'm gonna go with the more boring key to the game first. My first key to the game is force a lot of throws. As of last night when I put these stats together, which I guess there hasn't been any games since then, the Hustle have the second highest total completions and the highest completion percentage in the league thus far in the season. And they have like the highest huck percentage too. So they're very successful in throwing a lot of throws, but their defense needs to continue to force a lot of throws. You can't let them take those big looks. As Justin Burnett said, they will, and they don't need to, but they will take those big looks if you give them. Force a lot of throws, put offense or defensive pressure on early and all throughout.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that we were talking for the strike game that like sometimes you got to give the under.
Yep.
Be honest, you can't give the under, you can't give the deep. You're gonna have to be on like glue this entire game. The cutter defense is gonna have to be tight. Um, yeah, it's gonna. I mean, the handler defense is gonna have to be tight. It's gonna have to be tight all throughout the
Mhm.
entire game.
yeah, and like Jeff was saying, they have one of the highest completion percentages, and the only way to make them have a turnover, if they turn it over one every 100 throws, you need to make them throw 100 times. Like that's what you do.
You play the stats. And Minnesota does a really good job at forcing a lot of throws. I don't have the stats with me right now, but I remember last year I looked at that stat specifically a few different times, and every team they played, like compare like Minnesota would throw 200 throws in a game and their opponent would throw like 400 or whatever it was. Like the stats were significant of their defensive pressure and how much they forced opposing offenses to throw. So,
Yeah, so the last game against Pittsburgh, Minnesota threw 198 passes and Pittsburgh threw 341.
yeah.
So, yeah, you're right there on that. Yeah.
Yeah. My second key to the game is block out the bright lights. They have never won in TCO Stadium. They played the Indianapolis Alley Cats in 2019. They played Salt Lake Shred in 2023, and they played the New York Empire in 2024. They've never won. Um, I don't know why. I wouldn't call it choking. I wouldn't call it even jitters. I would just honestly, personally, I'd call it a fluke. It's a relatively unfamiliar stadium. I know it's a home game. I know this will be their fourth game there, but they don't play in this stadium very often. Um, it's a marquee matchup. Like I think there will be jitters this weekend. It's a new team. It's a brand new team. Um, it's just my basically my key to the game is win in TCO. Don't let those bright lights get to you. Play your game. Don't, get that Chicago game out of your minds. Get that Pittsburgh game out of your minds, and play every single throw. They almost need to like. I also had a note on my notes here. Wow. That they need to like manufacture home field advantage in a way. Like get that crowd on your side, figure out a way. I mean, like this is a more familiar stadium now. Like we won't be able to say that very often in the future. It's a completely new stadium for the Hustle. So like take advantage of what little home field advantage you have, and yeah. manufacture some points.
I think a big thing as well, 0-3 is a relatively small sample size, especially when you're considering the two teams they played were, top five teams
Yeah.
in the years they played them. So, I mean, like, we're going to give the wind chill a little bit of a break. Um, but I totally agree. If they can get that win at TCO in front of a large crowd, I think that spells a really good thing for them for not just this game, but for the rest of the season. I feel like this key to the game is almost like a key to the season. Not to say that, winning this game is the end all be all. They lost to the Empire last year at TCO and, look where that got them. But
Hmm.
if they are able to win this game, I think that that sort of momentum, that sort of drive, like, oh, at least we beat the hustle. We beat the hustle. We took down this 6-0 team.
Yeah, I mean, I said this in our text, and I kind of like it, maybe just because it rhymes, but they either need to beat or compete with the hustle. I think we kind of said this with the Empire last year. Like they really can't get blown out, and like they did get blown out, and they still won championship week. Like I know we look at that now, but I think it was true at that time, and I think this is true at this time as well. Like I don't think they can get blown out by the hustle, and like yeah, say you're a contender at this point in the season, but.
Yeah, I do think that it would be choking. I think that's the right term for it. I think Minnesota. You can say that Minnesota sports in general is kind of like the joke is that we always choke in the big games. Um, but I do really think that Minnesota, yeah, needs to just get the rest of the games out of their head, play just consistently, and rely on what they know and play the game. Whatever stadium you're in, just play the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think just another interesting thing is, like Jeff mentioned before with this, the strike game, double the first game of a doubleheader for their not the
Yep, the
Indy.
surge.
It's
Surge.
the Surge. Thank you. I'm
Yeah.
like, Philadelphia, what? Yeah, the Surge. This is the first game of a doubleheader for the Atlanta Hustle.
Yeah.
And then they're going to take on the undefeated Chicago Union.
Yeah, very true.
So
Very
if
true.
if we're, sort of holding that
Championship
logic,
contenders.
the Hustle may be, conserving some energy to be facing that undefeated team on Saturday.
I think they
Championship
will be they
contenders.
will be conserving energy, and they won't be because they're still like yeah. But okay, I'm gonna share my screen here. We're getting into mailbag here. We got less than 7 minutes left on our pod. So I like to show the charts here, just so everyone on YouTube can see, and so YouTube can see as well. So I had a couple different questions this week. We only had 3 responses, but also we had 3 responses. Sometimes we don't have any. So I appreciate everyone who responded. My first question was the Minnesota Strike are 1-2 on the season, and they have 2 games left to go. How do you think the Strike will finish? And everybody said 3-2. They think they're going to win their next 2 games. I would love for us to each input our thoughts. But everybody just throw your record out, and then we'll move on. I'm
Two
going
and
to
three.
say, yeah, I'm going to say 2-3.
No, I think 3-2 as
That
well.
feels realistic. That's all.
How many games does it take for you to get a good feel for how the team is? And this is my gripe with the PUL. Like that's where this question was born from. Um, 66% of people, 2 people said it takes about 3 to 4 games for them to really understand how good or bad a team is. One person said 1 to 2 games.
Four
I'd say
plus.
probably 4 plus.
100%.
I'm gonna say 3 to 4. I'd probably say yeah, 3.5, 4 games.
I'd say five is like my magic number.
Yeah.
I would say 4 is my number. If they're clearly, if they're doing the same thing for roughly 3 games, I only need 3. If they're kind of inconsistent for the first 3 games, I might need 5. It depends. But I think 4 is pretty much a happy medium.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get more games, y'all.
Yeah, seriously.
More games, but no games.
Okay, and then kind of the classic, just predictions for the Strikes game against Philly. Someone said big win. Someone said hopefully a cleaner game, chillier playing, maybe a higher score, 14-12. Yeah, it'd be nice to see that, that scoreboard rack up a little bit. Let's get those numbers up there. And so then I asked predictions for the Wind Chills game against the Atlanta Hustle. Someone said big win, probably the same person. Someone said close match, Wind Chill going to get out strong and dominate too, 27-22. There's no way either team's getting 27 points on Friday. I promise you that. Um, someone said, "Are you sure it's supposed to be the hustle?" Because this went out last week, right ahead as we were gonna go play Pittsburgh. Yes, because we're recording this week. Said either way, I say it's 25-22 hustle win. That's a realistic
It's an
prediction.
L
I think
take.
it's.
It's a
I mean,
bad take.
yeah. I don't think that score is going to be that high. I mean, I think it's going to be the winner,
Really?
whoever it's going to be, is going to get like 21 points.
I think it's gonna be a tight game for sure. I think it's gonna be high scoring either way. Yeah.
Mm.
I think it'll be high scoring, and I also think that the wind will be less of a factor than it has these past few games. Just checking the weather for this weekend, Friday and Saturday are looking like they're going to be, relatively speaking, calm days.
Yeah. Low
So
pressure
another
zone.
plane on Friday, but it's going to be, sunny, got a nice high pressure system moving in, or
High
Mhm.
pressure.
yeah,
Yep.
Which one is it? Low wind. Yeah, I
yeah.
checked too.
Lastly, just kind of the generic open-ended. Any additional comments, questions, or takes you want to share? Someone said Atlanta is good, but after that Chicago game, we know what we need to work on. Yeah. And someone said, I think the wind chill looked really bad last week. It's making me nervous. It makes me very nervous for the rest of the season. Uh,
I got
yeah,
something to
with
say
only
about this.
okay, we got 3 minutes.
Okay, I'll say it real quick. Bro, Chicago is just our big brother. Chicago's just got our number, all right? They just stole our lunch money and they bully us sometimes. We won a championship last year. Get it together, guys. We're okay. We can lose to Chicago at home. It can be the worst game we've ever played, and we can still win a championship game this year. It's one there we're fine. We're fine.
See, this is where I wish we did have a paid Zoom subscription, or we should have like dedicated this whole episode to the hustle game. But I do in short agree with both of these. The wind chill looked bad against Chicago. We can't deny that. Chicago looked good and the wind chill looked bad. Uh, and we know what we need to work on, right? And I think like that's why I say this hustle game, like they need to beat or compete with the hustle. They need to clean it up. If it's gonna look like Chicago again, then again, I'm not saying we're doom and gloom and that's the end of the season, but yeah, they gotta figure it out.
We watched two different Minnesota Chicago games. The Chicago team looked bad. They were
Oh,
like,
I
what?
disagree.
I, I mean,
That's a
looking like
that was a new
purely from
team.
it's a new team in the sense that
New
like they have a
games are
couple of
always ugly.
new pieces, but at the same time, like Chicago had a 31% O-line conversion percentage and a 38% hold percentage. That like, yeah, Minnesota was throwing harder, but Chicago didn't look good. They just didn't like we forget that Minnesota had that fourth quarter run at one point, and if that was enough to give them the lead, I don't think Minnesota would have given it back up.
Right. Point being, the wind chill still looked bad. Okay. So anyway, either way, shout out to the fans. We are not going to be there on Friday. Jay's getting married. Congratulations, Jay. Everybody drop congratulations, Jay and Kelsey in the comments. Kelsey spelled with an IE. Uh, show up to TCO early, get loud, bring noisemakers, bring signs, make up for us three not being there. Saturday, at least I'm going to be there. I think Can's going to be there. Jay's TBD. He's getting married on Friday. Uh, so he may or may not be there at the strike game on Saturday. So either way, show up, cheer for your Minnesota Ultimate teams, and yeah, let's get a couple dubs this weekend. Stay chilly and ka chow.
Good
Stay
job.
chilly.
Stay chilly.
Ciao.